My name is Laurie Chesley, and I'm the Dean of Arts and Sciences at Grand Rapids Community College. Welcome to Spectrum Theater, just one of the venues on our campus where we showcase the excellent work of the faculty and students of the School of Arts and Sciences. The GRCC theater program and our community theater partners present award-winning productions of contemporary, thought-provoking plays here at Spectrum every season, so we hope you'll take advantage of some of those. We do have a great deal to be proud of in the School of Arts and Sciences. In addition to the 7 different associate's degrees we confer, we offer nationally accredited programs in visual arts, music, and early childhood education. Our journalism students produce a newspaper, The Collegiate, that has a rich history of state and national awards. The Poet Laureate of Grand Rapids, David Cope, teaches here. In recent years, our faculty have organized and hosted conferences and speaker series on a wide variety of topics, including peace and reconciliation, political science, teaching biology, psychology, and writing in the workplace. Our science faculty are regional leaders in promoting STEM education and careers for young people. I could go on, but you get the picture. Indeed, as our president, Steve Ender, has said, GRCC offers the first 2 years of a university education with a community college philosophy. Nowhere is this more apparent than in this very event, the 4th annual Race, Ethnicity, and Identity Conference hosted by the GRCC Social Sciences Department and the GRCC chapter, the only community college chapter of the International Geographical Honor Society. This interdisciplinary conference has become one of the premier scholarly events on the GRCC academic calendar. If you take a look at the breadth of the conference program, you will see that it engages GRCC students, faculty, and the local community in a rich conversation about issues that have shaped the course of history and that are shaping GRCC itself, the current political climate in the United States, and perhaps most profoundly, the global society we inhabit. Every one of our full-time social science faculty members is a contributor to this conference, and I would ask that those faculty who are present this evening stand and be recognized for their excellent work. Please stand. I also would ask that Professor Mike Light, Department Head of Social Sciences, stand again because he is the leader of this event, the main organizer of this event, and without him and his entire department, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you all very, very much. Tonight, Susan Retik continues the tradition of inspiring keynote speakers that have been featured at the Race, Ethnicity, and Identity Conference. Susan Retik is the co-founder and president of Beyond the 11th, a nonprofit organization that empowers widows in Afghanistan who have been afflicted by war, terrorism, and oppression. Beyond the 11th supports programs that allow widows to provide for themselves and their families. This is accomplished in 2 ways. First, by increasing awareness of the desperate situations that the widows in Afghanistan find themselves in, and second, by raising funds to help them. More specifically, Beyond the 11th has helped widows by providing grants to non-governmental organizations and by funding educational and economic opportunities that are sustainable and culturally appropriate. Susan's commitment to improving the lives of Afghan women arose from her own personal tragedy. Her husband, a passenger on American Flight 11, was a victim of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Grateful for the emotional support that friends, family, and even strangers had afforded her after her loss, Susan wondered what support existed for Afghan women, and along with co-founder Patty Quigley, created Beyond the 11th to provide help that ultimately improved the lives of hundreds of women. Patty Quigley's and Susan Retik's 2006 visit to Afghanistan was the subject of a critically acclaimed documentary, Beyond Belief. For her courage and her humanitarian efforts, Susan has received many awards, for example, from Search for Common Ground and Traditional Home magazine, and she has been featured in numerous media pieces on television, including The Oprah Winfrey Show, and numerous pieces in print. We are truly honored to have Susan Retik join us this evening. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chesley, and for that very kind introduction. I'd also like to thank Mike Light. You already got, I won't make you stand up again, but I do appreciate your reaching out to me and the entire social science department and everyone who's worked on the Race and Ethnicity Conference. It's wonderful to be here today. The only other time I've ever been to Grand Rapids was about 15 years ago. I had come here to root on my husband and some of his friends, one of whom is here today. They were participating in the Gus Macker. I call it Gus Macker, but apparently it's Gus Macker. I'm not saying it correctly. Basketball tournament. And I was pregnant at the time. And what I remember most about that weekend was just it was filled with sunshine and laughter and love, and it was truly a magical time in our lives. So today I've been invited to tell my story, and I'd like to try and make clear how I navigated the path from that time in my life to this podium here today. So, 10 years ago, I was a 33-year-old stay-at-home mom with 2 preschoolers. Ben was just shy of 4, Molly was 2, and I was 7 months pregnant with our 3rd child. I had married my college sweetheart, David, a smart, funny, adorable soccer player I spotted in our dorm freshman year. By senior year, I had worked up enough courage to ask him out on a date. We married 5 years later, and we're about to celebrate our 6th wedding anniversary. Dave was working challenging hours as a venture capitalist, and I had just stopped working in educational publishing to raise our children full-time. Like so many young families, we found life to be a constant juggle between work and family. But in many ways, it was the most satisfying stage of our lives. Dave loved being a father and a husband, and I loved being a wife and a mother. We had our whole lives ahead of us. On the morning of September 11th, Dave got up extra early. He was flying to California on an early morning flight. I'd like to say I remember him kissing me on the cheek or patting me on the stomach before he left, but I don't. I was at that restless stage of pregnancy where you flop like a fish on a hook and sleeping in short 20-minute intervals, and at the time that he left, I was basically out cold. Later, the kids and I got up and found notes on the kitchen table that Dave had written to both Ben and Molly, wishing them good times at school, and that he said that he loved them and he would see them soon. At 7:30, Dave called from Logan Airport, and we had a moment to catch up. Through the phone, I could hear an announcement over the PA system, and then Dave said, "I gotta go, we're boarding, I love you." "I love you too," I said. And I then proceeded to get the kids ready for their day. Molly was in a Little Twos program held in the basement of a local church, and Ben was starting his first day of preschool for that year at our temple. Once I'd settled them, I was planning on going to the grocery store in that tiny window of time any mother of preschoolers knows you get before it's already time to pick the kids up. It was all so ordinary, so unremarkable, the mundane details of just an ordinary life. On the way to the store, I turned off the kids' music and turned on NPR, and I was immediately hit by the news of the day. I heard something about a plane crash in New York City, and my first thought after how terrible for the passengers and their families was, thank God Dave is heading to California. Because it's what we do, right? You hear about a disaster and you do a mental check of the ones that we love. You know, kids, just saw them, okay. Dave, okay, you know, check, he's on his way to LA. But during my drive to the grocery store, I picked up more pieces of information. The plane had been hijacked, and it was American Airlines Flight 11. I think I must have heard something about Boston. All I do remember is the terrible pit in my stomach. Should I worry? I had no idea what Dave's flight number was. He traveled so much that it was just an endless string of numbers, too many to remember. Don't be ridiculous, I thought. It can't be. But there I sat outside the grocery store with the motor running. It was now about 9:45, and something told me, just go home. Just check Dave's computer for his itinerary. Everyone remembers how blue the sky was that day, and it was. It was the most beautiful, perfect fall day. It was Ben's first day of school, a day for beginnings. I got home and booted up Dave's computer, my hand shaking on the mouse. But I still told myself, don't be ridiculous. I have such a normal, boring, beautiful life, and things like this don't happen to people like me. And there it was, Boston to LA, American Airlines Flight 11. I knew right away. I never believed for one moment that he had miraculously survived. The moments after are a horrifying blur. After frantically trying to call my parents in Philadelphia and my best friend Mo, who lived down the street, I just stood in the middle of my kitchen and screamed. My friend's answering machine kept picking up, so I ended up running down the street, barefoot and pregnant, like a lunatic. And no one was home at my friend Mo's house, so I ran back home. And by the time I got there, my mom had called back. And soon, Mo's husband, who heard my voicemail, burst through our front door. We locked eyes, and before he could even wrap his arms around me, I just collapsed to the floor. September 11th, 2001 changed the lives of thousands of Americans. Many, many wives lost their husbands, not just me, and many, many children lost parents, not just mine. As much as it was a personal tragedy for me and my family, it was also a national tragedy, an international tragedy. And this meant that while my family and I were grieving our personal loss, we were also part of the national grieving, and the two were always connected, whether or not we liked it. In the days after 9/11, life changed rapidly. I felt absolutely no control over any of it, and for a control freak, that's a pretty scary thing. I'm often asked if I ever gave up or just wanted to evaporate there on the spot. Everyone's reaction to tragedy is different, and I can understand how some people would not want to go on. But for me, it was never an option. I had 2 little children and our third to think about. I immediately went into protection mode. Protect my children at all cost from a loss so enormous their little selves could not possibly comprehend it. That overwhelming protectiveness is what led me to be running the bases at a t-ball field with my 4-year-old Ben just 2 days after his dad had been killed. Was I out of my mind? Maybe. But I still remember being incredibly focused. Ben had just lost his dad, and he had been thinking about t-ball and waiting for t-ball and dreaming of t-ball every day for weeks. I knew I couldn't bring his dad back, but damn it, I could take him to t-ball. In other words, you just do what you can. Ben was shy and nervous because he had never played organized sports before, so I held his hand and we ran the bases together. I was lucky. After Dave was killed, I was rescued by the love of my family, my friends, and of strangers I would never meet, who showered us with cards and letters and gifts filled with compassion and support. People cooked us meals, sent us beautiful handmade quilts. Everywhere I looked, there was another casserole for our freezer or a new coloring book for my kids. A neighbor cut our grass week after week. The list literally goes on and on. That type of support enabled me to pause and look across oceans and continents to widows in Afghanistan. How did I jump there, you may ask? When the United States began preparing to invade Afghanistan, images of Afghan life covered our newspapers, our magazines, and were flashing across our TV screens. And for me, and probably most Americans, it was the first time I was learning about the plight of the Afghan people, and I was particularly shocked to learn the role of women in Afghan society under the rule of the Taliban. It wasn't the Afghan people that we were going to fight, but the Taliban regime, which brutally controlled the country and had allowed the terrorist camps to openly train the 9/11 attackers. In the fall of 2001, I specifically remember Oprah airing a story on the lives of Afghan women, and I learned some horrible truths. 88% of all Afghan women are illiterate. 1 out of every 5 children dies before the age of 5. The average life expectancy of Afghan women is 44 years old, and that's 20 years younger than women in neighboring countries. Before the Taliban, girls had been able to go to school, and women could have careers and wore Western clothing and participated in government. After the Taliban came to power, women were treated as the property of their male relatives with no rights of their own. Schools for girls were burned to the ground. Women and girls were attacked with machetes and bludgeoned to death with rocks for the crime of trying to hold class. It was actually against the law for girls to go to school. Women were not allowed to work and were not allowed out of the house unless accompanied by a male relative, and they had to be covered from head to toe in a heavy burqa. I was stunned by the images, and I thought to myself, if it's so terrible to be a woman in Afghanistan, what then happens to women who are widowed? And what I've since learned is that widows have no legal rights, no inheritance, and no life insurance. If your husband dies, your home gets passed to his male relatives, which means you can be cast out onto the street with your children to beg and starve. As a widow myself, I identified with these women. I was widowed and given rock star status and all the help I could possibly ask for. Although they lived thousands of miles away in a culture that couldn't be more different than ours, I couldn't help but think, who supports these women when their husbands die? Who will help lift them out of hopelessness and despair? The inequities are so overwhelming. I wasn't naive enough to think I could change the country, but I knew in my heart that I could help just one. That was the initial idea of Beyond the 11th. Provide support for one widow and their children and her children the way so many had reached out to help me. Help a woman in a different country who had been affected by the very same terrorist network as my family in my country. It was the smallest and simplest of ambitions, help just one. And that simple idea is how the life that I lost began to transform itself into the life that I have. Not long after Dave was killed, friends put me in touch with another 9/11 widow, Patty Quigley. She and I met for coffee and found much in common. Patty, too, was pregnant when her husband, Patrick, was killed and had a young daughter. I told Patty my thoughts about somehow reaching out to Afghan widows. Patty often speaks about going home that evening and reading a book called A Grace Disguised, and in it, it says, "You cannot always choose the roles you play in life, but you can choose the way in which you play them." The next morning, she called me on the phone and she said, "Let's do it." So together, we started to brainstorm about the best way to help. We researched aid agencies that were already doing humanitarian work with Afghan women. And in 2003, we co-founded Beyond the 11th to raise awareness of the plight of Afghan widows and to provide education and job training so these women have a chance to lift themselves from poverty and desperation. Rather than simply donate money to existing programs which aid Afghan women in general, We work closely with NGOs to design programs specifically tailored for widows. In 2006, we had a chance of a lifetime, a trip to Afghanistan to meet some of the women we serve. We were followed by Beth Murphy, a Boston filmmaker who heard about us and wanted to make a documentary film about our work. Although Patty had stepped down from Beyond the 11th in 2005, preferring to advocate for Afghan women in a quieter, less public way, we made the journey together. Many people have asked me how the two of us found the motivation to travel to such a dangerous place when we both had young children at home. And I won't lie to you, I was terrified. Both Patty and I could never for a single moment in our waking or sleeping lives forget that we were single parents, that our children had lost their fathers to the same violence that still rocked the country we'd be visiting. So how did we do it? I can only speak for myself. I felt a profound need to connect personally with the women we were serving. I wanted a chance to connect outside of politics and ideology. And in Afghanistan, we really, truly had that chance. We went to Kabul, the capital city, which itself has approximately 75,000 widows. There, we were able to meet the brave staffs of the NGOs we had been working with to develop programs tailored for women, widows. And we met many of the women who directly benefited from these programs. The experience was so much more than we ever could have hoped for. Just as I had suspected, we found that despite the language barrier and huge differences in the cultures of our respective countries, we connected to the women as women everywhere connect. We laughed and we cried with these women. We shared food and stories of our children. They communicated their warmth and welcomed us through their eyes and through their touch. I was particularly drawn to one woman named Sahara, whose story appears in the documentary film that Beth eventually made called Beyond Belief. Even though we were speaking through a translator, I felt a connection with Sahara that didn't need to be translated. I'm sure everyone in this room has had that experience of meeting someone with whom you instantly like and feel comfortable with, and that's what I felt with Sahara. She and I, on so many levels, could not be more different. I'm Jewish and she's Muslim. I received a college education, and Sahara doesn't know how to read or write. Yet regardless of our differences, the connection was unmistakable. So let me tell you a little bit about Sahara. The first thing that I noticed, and anyone would notice about her, is that she's absolutely beautiful. If she lived here in the United States, she'd probably be on the cover of like Vogue or something. But unfortunately, her story is not nearly so glamorous. Since Afghanistan has been the subject of invasions and war for over 25 years, Sahara has spent her entire life surrounded by turmoil and deprivation, and her story is typical. She was married off at a young age and received very little education. Since Afghan families' resources are typically reserved for the education of boys, girls are considered more valuable for the beneficial marriages they might bring. Still, though hers was an arranged marriage, Sahara spoke very tenderly about the love that she and her husband Mohammed shared. They had 5 young children together, and Mohammed was able to provide a modest living. Sahara's world was shattered when Mohammed was killed by a landmine on his way to visit relatives in the village of Shamali. Although his death received none of the attention that the victims of 9/11 did, it was just as impactful on their family as the loss of Dave was on ours. Since his death, Sahara struggled to provide even the most basic necessities for her 5 children. Her extended family was mostly unable to help as they too struggled to survive in an impoverished, war-ravaged country. Sahara's mother-in-law, with whom Sahara and her children lived, had 7 sons, all of whom had died. 3 died of cancer. Needless to say, there was no medical care. And 4 of her sons died as a result of war, including Sahara's husband, Mohammed. Her mother-in-law was not well. She spoke very little, and her suffering was so visible, both physically and mentally, emotionally, and you could literally see her pain. Sahara, like all the young widows that we met, lived in one room with her children, no running water, no electricity, not a stick of furniture. She had pillows on the floor that she used both for seating as well as to sleep on. She had one cooking pot and a few utensils. Her children had no toys, no books, no things. But what Sahara lacked in material things, she and her family truly made up for in spirit. After all they had been through, they welcomed us like family. I had the opportunity to meet Sahara because she'd participated in one of our grant programs with CARE International. As a part of that particular program, she received 50 chickens, chicken feed, use of an incubator, and materials to build a chicken coop. The eggs produced by the chickens are easily sold to neighbors or eaten by the family. And with so little money to live on, protein is a very difficult thing to come by. So having a supply of eggs can be truly life-changing. Before meeting Sahara and the other widows, I'd known in theory that entrepreneurial programs for widows was a good idea. But seeing the actual women and their children and hearing of their successes in running small businesses made me realize how far-reaching this kind of training can be. It ripples out and it can improve the lives of whole communities and villages. The food Sahara raises helps her own family, but it also helps her neighbors. The money she earns by selling eggs pays for household necessities, and it also pays for visits to the regional health clinic and fees for her children to attend school. This ripple effect is profound because it redirects despair. It's no secret that the most vulnerable population for recruitment into criminal activity, whether it's gangs here in the United States or terror networks in the Middle East, are adolescent males who have no economic prospects and often no fathers. They are the ones with time on their hands whose anger can so easily be radicalized. I can't make sweeping claims about how to provide an antidote to terrorism, but I can tell you that changing the economic prospects of a mother offers a different path that may lead to very different choices for her children. Since its inception in 2003, Beyond the 11th has raised approximately $1.2 million. The majority of our fundraising has been through cycling events. 6 months ago, I stood at Ground Zero with 50 cyclists ready to embark on Beyond the Bike, a 3-day journey, fundraising journey, bike ride from New York City to Boston, 3 days, 250 miles. We stood at the very spot where 10 years ago, my husband David's life, along with thousands of others, ended so abruptly. Looking down on that sacred ground, I was so overcome by feelings of loss, anger, and helplessness. How was it possible that Dave, a wonderful husband, father, son, brother, and friend, had his life cut short at the age of 33? How was it possible that he never met his beautiful daughter, Dina, and that he didn't live to see the incredible young people that his children have become? But feelings are so complicated because I also stood at that same spot and felt pride, I felt love, and I felt strength. I knew within the first moments of widowhood that I would move forward. I would not get stuck in a place of anger and hate. Dave would not have wanted me to focus on death, but instead to look to the future, toward life. My fellow riders and I had an exhilarating 3 days winding our way through the streets of Manhattan, up the hilly suburbs of Connecticut, and ever northward toward Dover, Massachusetts. There we were joined by 175 other cyclists as we continued to the beautiful banks of the Charles River. But our journey was not easy. We encountered many obstacles along the way. Flat tires, huge hills, leg cramps, pure exhaustion, and for me personally, a concussion and a broken clavicle. But just like in life, we made a series of choices along the way. We chose to continue to move forward, one pedal at a time. Even when we thought we didn't have an ounce of energy left, we encouraged each other, we supported one another, and we banded together and made possible what at times seemed like the impossible. That generosity of spirit buoyed us up, pushing us over the tough hills until we achieved our goal of completing Beyond the Bike. And 10 years since 9/11, I clearly recognize the power of that kind of support. After Dave was killed, the support I received became a blanket of safety and security that allowed me to pick up my head and move beyond the 11th. When people first learn about our work, they sometimes ask, why help them over there? And initially, I was really surprised at this response. But I've come to realize that often our first reaction is to see the differences in people. And when you focus on all that is different, it is so easy to become indifferent. Once you notice the similarities, however, it's much easier to recognize that people everywhere are simply trying to move through life with dignity and in peace. When I had the opportunity to go to Afghanistan and meet many women who, just like me, who had been widowed at a young age and were trying to raise families the best that they could, I realized that the common thread of motherhood makes us far more alike than different. I am a mother who wants for my children to live in peace and security, to have access to health care and education. I want my children to grow up to be happy, kind, successful people in this world. And I believe I would want these things for my children, whether they were born here in the United States or in Afghanistan. Because these ideals are not American, they are human. They're simply universal. The work of Beyond the 11th is not simply the act of serving one widow at a time. It's the surest way I know to help fight the despair and disenfranchisement that so often leads to terrorism. We're not going to win the war on terror simply with bombs and bullets. We can't literally force the world to be our friends. We must actively befriend the world. We must look outside our borders and recognize that we are all connected, because to think otherwise is truly foolish. 9/11 created an exceptional moment of unity in our country, and for me, it forever changed my life. It caused me to pause and to consider those beyond our borders. It brought into great focus that indifference to our shared humanity allowed the 9/11 terrorists to do what they did. And faced with that indifference, I could respond in kind, I could turn inward and reject everything that seems foreign and unknown, or I could choose action, just as so many people across our country chose action in reaching out to me, a woman they did not know. I chose to use the loving energy that had cradled and lifted me up in the darkest moments of my life and somehow put it out into the world. 10 years ago, we lost so much, but it's important that we not simply remember those great losses. We must also recognize the decency, the bravery, and the love that grew out of that catastrophe. In 10 years, so many have done so much to overcome the hatred of a few. So it's important that we celebrate that spirit of selflessness. We celebrate all the humble acts of caring by strangers for those in need. Because in the end, none of us really are strangers. We are all connected. I know that I've spoken for a long time, but to recap, there are three main themes that I'd like to leave you with. One, it's so important not to focus on the differences, whether it's politics, race, or religion. Because when you look for common ground, the possibilities of forward movement are incredible. And when you focus simply on the differences, people get stuck. People dig their heels in, and the anger and the hatred take over. Two, I'll repeat the quote I said earlier, which is, you cannot always choose the roles you play in life, but you can choose the way in which you play them. The only thing we can do in this life is to decide truly to make choices as to how we react to what life throws at us. I'm going to share a quote from Beyond Belief, Toward the end of the film, Beth Murphy interviews Patty Quigley's brother, who happens to be a priest. And he addresses the importance of seemingly small choices in the shaping of a human being. And his words are so eloquent that I'm going to quote them. He says, "There's a way in which each of us makes small choices every day. And after a period of time, those choices develop into a pattern. Each moral and ethical choice forms our identity. It seems to me that the terrorists who flew planes into the buildings on September 11th, they started making choices a long time ago, choices that took them so far off center that flying a plane into a building seemed like the right thing to do. It's like any one of us. We choose our way into being ourselves." At Beyond the 11th, we're committed to providing access to better choices for Afghan widows and their children. We believe that investing in programs that offer such choices can be transformative for a woman, for her children, for a community, and even for a country. Which brings me to the third and final idea. Some of you may have read the book Half the Sky, a remarkable book written by Nick Kristof and Cheryl Wu Dunn. This book could not be a more relevant framework for what I've discussed today. In the book, Kristof and Wu Dunn, who are married journalists, have investigated the plight of women all around the world. And they believe that when the world's women unite to advocate for each other, they can end the global oppression of women and girls that they rightly call the greatest humanitarian crisis of the 21st century. Unite the world's women. That would have sounded like a really tall order when I started out. I would have thought the problem is too big. I'm only one person. I can't take on something so overwhelming. I would have done nothing. But when I began, I had an extremely simple notion, which was just help one. And that's the final thought. If you can do something positive for just one person, that is so powerful. And if in the process you manage to improve the life of even one other person, you have begun to change the world. And that, I can tell you from personal experience, is worth trying. Thank you.
So, any questions for Susan?
I moved here from New York about 1.5 years ago. I was born and raised, and I remember 9/11 being in 4th grade and being in downtown at the time and having to evacuate, having to run away and just being scared, not knowing what was going on. The ground shook, everything was just, it was scary. And I still remember, still an image in my mind. And I remember having a best friend who lost her uncle and her cousins who was in the building. I remember seeing their sorrow affecting me, made me cry, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's still an image that stays with you. And I didn't lose a family member, but just seeing a friend losing their family member is tough. And I just want to know how me as a person, I can help support you, or maybe us as people, just help, you know what I mean? Seeing this video, just listening to you talk wasn't just a presentation, it was more of a lesson learned. Made me be more grateful for what I have, more appreciative. Just wondering how I can help as a person, because I can't relate to you 100%, but somewhat I can, from a certain angle, I can feel your sorrow. I know it's still there, and it's something that's always gonna be there.
Right.
And it sucks, and I'm sorry. Just wanna know how us as people can just help and do what you did and take that step further like that.
Thanks. People ask me often, how can they help? How can you help? We're a small organization, and basically, like I said, what we do is we raise money and we make grants to NGOs who are working in Afghanistan. Most of the different organizations out there work specifically with women, but not widows, so we have them tailor programs specifically geared towards widows. But that said, most of what we do is fundraising so that we can then decide where to give out the money. So in terms of helping with Beyond the 11th, there are different ways to raise funds. The film Beyond Belief is available through Netflix and whatnot, and one successful thing has been for people to show the film, in a community setting. Either, lots of people have book groups, so you could show it in lieu of reading a book that month, or in different colleges and universities, or in your church. That's been one way that individuals have been able to raise funds to make an impact. But from your question, it sounds to me like you were definitely moved by women and widows in Afghanistan, and that's clearly my passion. But what I would say to you, because I think this is more the root of your question, is I think everybody needs to find what moves them in their lives. And maybe it's, maybe you have a family member or friend that was affected by cancer, or, there's so many different causes or things out there. And whatever it is, find that passion and do something. And, I think what I tried to say also when I was speaking is that you don't have to create a whole organization, you don't have to change the whole world, but you can reach out to one person and you can start small, and that really does make a difference. So. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. There's one down here, I don't know.
I was just wondering, so what was the first step you took once you decided that you wanted to start helping the Afghanistan women? Like, I know you talked to Patty, but after that, what was the step
What
that you
we
guys
did
went
was we
through?
really started researching about Afghanistan, and specifically women in Afghanistan, and we spoke with lots of different NGOs, nonprofit organizations that had working in Afghanistan to learn what the needs were and how we could be most impactful. We kind of decided early on that we did not want to recreate the wheel. We weren't going to create our own program. I certainly was not planning to move to Afghanistan to oversee some kind of program. And, having researched, we realized that there were some really wonderful organizations already on the ground in Afghanistan. So, like I said, we decided we were going to raise money and make grants to these organizations. But, it's been a learning curve all along, deciding what types of grants we'd like to make. In the very beginning, we met with an organization called Vital Voices. Hillary Clinton is a board member, and we had heard wonderful things about the program, and it is great. But what they do is they take the very literate leaders in Afghanistan and bring them to the United States and teach them leadership skills and whatnot that they can take back to Afghanistan. I think it's a fabulous program, but it's not focused on widows. So we chose not to focus on them. So we kind of, had to really find what was going to work for us. So you saw the, one of the grants that we made was for the poultry rearing program, but we've made many, many more since then. One of the grants I'm most proud of is in January of 2010, we had made a grant to an organization called Arzu, and what they do is their main focus is giving women the materials and teaching them how to weave beautiful rugs, and it's something they can do in their home. And when they partake in the program, they sign a contract that says they're going to send their kids to school, specifically their girls, and they're going to access health care that's provided to them. Back in January of 2010, in addition to this kind of program, they created the first women's community center in Afghanistan, and we helped fund that community center. And in that community center, they have a 2-story room that houses a very large loom where women can come and work together on rugs, because they're sold here in the United States. So like if American Express wants to have like a big rug in their office building, the loom that it would take to create that rug couldn't fit in this woman's home, so they built this 2-story room where the women come together and work on it. And the reason I love it so much is that there's so much depression in Afghanistan, unfortunately, because of all of the years of war, and women are often relegated to their homes. They don't have the ability to, and the access to just chat and gossip with one another. And so when they come to this community center, it's like truly a community center, and they really interact with one another. And there's so many other wonderful programs there. We gave money for a playground so that when they're there, their children have a safe place to play. We gave money for a library there so that they can access that. They take literacy classes there. There's a community garden so the women can grow vegetables and have food. There's also laundry facility, which sounds like a luxury, but imagine Afghanistan has very cold winters and very warm summers. So imagine like on a cold winter day having to like lug your laundry to find a water, some sort of water, walking long distances, freezing cold water, which mostly is contaminated and disgusting, and then washing it and then figuring out how to dry it in the dead of winter. So like having laundry facilities is just huge. They also have a flush toilet. They have, they don't have a flush toilet. They have, I'm lying. They have showers, which for most of these women, 99.9% of them, they had never taken a shower in their whole lives because they never had access to it. So like imagine being at this place where they can access these things that we just take for granted every day. So I love the community center. But how did we get to it? It's really like step by step. You learn about different things, and a lot of it has to do with how much we were able to raise, depends on how much we can give out. And as we've been going, different organizations have begun to seek us out because they've started to know about us a little bit. So, and we tend to work with the same ones over and over again because, you form relationships with different people and begin to feel really confident with what they're doing.
Thank you very much for the heroic work that you do. It's fine and it's impressive and it's very important. What is also very striking is the contrast in belief systems between your faith and the faith that is practiced in the world of Islam. Did that ever come up in conversation when you were in Afghanistan, your contrasts in belief systems?
Well, it's interesting that you say that there's such a contrast in the belief system. I actually don't think there is such a contrast in the belief system. I think that the root of Christianity and the root of Judaism and the root of Islam is all very similar. I think it's really all about being kind to one another and doing the right thing. And we might have different, a Torah or a Quran or the Bible or whatever. It might be different, but really I think at the core it really is all very similar. I think there are extremists in every religion. And, like I said, I'm Jewish. I'm not a big fan of the ultra radical Jews the same way I'm not a fan of an ultra radical Islamist. I feel like most religion is really just about peace and loving kindness. And so I find that is something that does bind us more than tear us apart.
I was struck in listening to your presentation and viewing the film by just how relative the value of money is.
How relative?
The value of money.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering, when in our world, when we go into a store and we see that a pair of shoes costs $49.95, it just got me thinking about what was the cost of the project with the chickens and the baling wire and so much feed per family, and just what does that, you would know, of course,
Sure.
Much better than any of us here in terms of how that value translates into lives in Afghanistan. And I just would like to learn a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, one of the statistics that was shown is that a woman-headed household, so like a widow's family, earns on average in Afghanistan $16 per month, and a male-headed household earns on average $48 a month. So imagine a woman, illiterate, with no real skills, barely getting by, $16 a month, that's, what is that, 50 cents a day? It's nothing. So something like the poultry rearing, one of the things that we found very, it was so important for us to see while we were in Afghanistan, is that when a woman sells an egg, tries to sell an egg, it's something that she can do. She can sell to her friends or her family or a neighbor. She doesn't have to go to a market and sell, because in Afghanistan, there's a woman still is not able to set up a stall in a market and sell her goods. That's why the ARZU program with the rug weaving is so great, because once a woman finishes that rug, ARZU sells it here in the United States, and they get a bonus no matter what. They'll get paid no matter, regardless of whether the rug is sold, but there's a market for it here, and they don't have to go through a middleman, because that's where they would lose, the women would do all the work and the men would get all the money. So when we make grants to different organizations, we are very, very, very clear that once they go through whatever program that, you know, we've made the grant to, they're immediately able to earn a steady income. It might not be a lot. They don't make a lot from eggs, but it's enough. You heard Sahara saying it. They make enough to get by so that they can survive for the week. You know, it's the bare minimum, but it's something. And, you know, raising chickens doesn't take all day, so you heard one of the women saying she also does some sewing and whatnot, so there are other ways to earn income. Did that answer your question?
I know earlier you stated that you didn't want to, when you were first thinking about this organization or the process in which, when you were talking to Patty about creating not creating an organization but being part of one, I know that you stated earlier that you didn't want to be in Afghanistan. So once you write all these grants, how do you regulate all of this and make sure that it's going to the right cause? Because like overseas, there's a lot of like the middleman people. So how do you regulate it as like the organization and make sure that these women are getting paid and that these women are succeeding and that they are following through with their contract and then they're not just making these rugs and then keeping them for themselves or whatever?
Right, that's a really good question. Each of the organizations that we work with very closely, and during the grant period, you know, we get, you know, a 6-month review, the end of the year review, and those organizations are the ones that are very closely monitoring the programs to make sure that they work. The grants that we make, you know, for the most part, they're doing, they might be working with a larger group, and we're carving out like certain people to benefit from our grant. So they're larger programs than just ours, if that makes sense. And, you know, at some level, there has to be trust. I have to trust the different organizations that we work with, but we vet them really, really well. For example, one of the organizations we gave to in the beginning was an organization called Women for Women International. Many of you may have heard of it. It's a great organization. I'm not throwing it under the bus, but we worked with them for a couple of years, and then I realized their mission wasn't, you know, I felt like the women who went through that program in Afghanistan for us, they didn't come out, they learned a skill or a trade, but weren't able to earn that steady income. They may have learned embroidery skills or jewelry making, but then they had to figure out how to make that marketable or employable and really earn income from it. And so after a couple of years, we decided it wasn't specific. I needed a better results than that. So we pick and choose, and it's a learning process. One of the women that we've worked with, the woman who helped to build the Women's Community Center, who oversaw the whole thing, her name's Razia John. She is an Afghan woman who fled to the United States during the Soviet invasion, so she lived here for many years, and after 9/11 decided to go back to Afghanistan to build a girls' school. And while she was there, we hooked her up with ARZU, which is the organization that built the community center. So I know her personally, and so I know that she's doing such a great job, you know, running that end of it over there. So we have personal relationships with the people on the ground. But I can't say we know everybody. I could never say that. So on some level, there's just trust. And, you know, we make grants. If we feel like they've done a good job, we'll potentially make another grant to them. But we wouldn't if we didn't feel like they really met our needs.
You guys need to coordinate these better. All the way to the back and then all the way to the front.
Hi, I was wondering if you have seen over the last 5 to 7 years significant changes in the school environment, you know, not only in what's there and how available they are in proximity to where people live. I mean, do they travel great distances to find an educational place? What's it like when they're there? Is there, in your mind, an estimation of qualified educators there?
Yeah, I think that, under the rule of the Taliban, like I mentioned, girls were not allowed to go to school. So very few children, especially girls, actually were educated. But since the fall of the Taliban, I mean, it's certainly not perfect. It's, not ideal. But millions of children go to school now. So it's a completely different thing. But unfortunately, there are still girls who were, assaulted or whatnot trying to go to school. Razia John, the woman I was talking about, who just a few years ago built a girls' school in Afghanistan, she built it right across the street from a boys' Taliban school. And I've heard her speak a few times, and she talks about how she works with that school. She gives them school supplies, and they basically won't burn her school down. So it's this like trade-off. It's so not ideal, but it's, head and shoulders better than it was back in 2001. So, so much of what we do is, geared towards widows, but the underlying idea really is that the widowed-headed households, we want them to earn enough money so that they're able to send their children to school. Because I really believe, truly, deeply, that it's the education of this next generation that's going to decide what Afghanistan becomes. That's in a very tricky situation right now, and unfortunately, there's definitely the chance that they're going to move backwards when the United States, eventually, and the international community eventually completely withdraws out of Afghanistan. No one really knows what's going to happen, but there's definitely a chance that it would go back to pre-2001 times. I hope that there's been enough progress that they'll be able to continue to move forward, but I think only time will tell.
First of all, you left me absolutely speechless when he said, "Are there any questions?" I thought, I don't even know what to say. You are an absolute incredible inspiration with your strength.
Thank you.
I really appreciated you talking about post-traumatic growth. I've never heard anyone say that before.
I would love to take credit, but that was Patty's voice you heard say that, and it is. It's. I should just take credit because you didn't know it.
I give you the credit. Have you been able to stay in touch with any of the women that you did meet when you were there, or at least hear through the grapevine, like how Sahara is doing, or any of the other women?
The only person I've communicated with is Sahara, and it's not been much, but Beth Murphy, who did the documentary, went back to Afghanistan, and when I knew that she was going back, I created like a video of me talking to her, and Beth found Sahara and showed her the video, and then Sahara videoed back to me, which was really cool. And believe it or not, she has a cell phone, and I was able to call her once. But it's so complicated because I need a translator, and she needs a translator, and cell service is a little spotty in Afghanistan. And if I'm being perfectly honest, when Beyond the 11th really began, it was because I wanted a personal connection, and I talked about, I really wanted them to learn about me, and I wanted to learn about them because I wanted to understand how these terrorists could train in Afghanistan so openly, and who were these people that we were about to invade, and I didn't understand any of it. I used to stand in the shower, well, I shouldn't say shower, I used to just hang out, whatever, and have conversations with Osama bin Laden in my head, because I wanted to, reason with him and explain, we're good people, I'm not bad, why hate us, why the hatred? And so I felt like, well, then who can you have that conversation with? I can have that with a mother. I can have that with another widow. And that's really what I wanted. But when I said, if I'm being honest, what I found was, and what I find is, it's really hard for me to really go there all the time, because you saw how I got upset when they wanted me to send a picture of my home. It's really hard to go to that place and live my life. And I thought it would be easier. So there's a part of me that really wants that connection, and there's a part of it that's so hard for me that I'm not really able to do it. So maybe one day.
Anyone else?
I almost feel like I've attended a funeral. So I'm looking around for a little envelope to know how to donate.
I know, I should have done that. You'd think after all this time I'd remember to bring things like that. You can go to our website, and I have some cards, I think, afterwards I can give out some cards that have the website. But our website is beyondthe11th11th.org, and I really do encourage you to go, whether or not you would like to make a donation, although donations are highly encouraged. No, but honestly, if you just want to learn more about our work, and you can read about some of the different grants that we've made and the different organizations that we work with, you know, how to get a copy of Beyond Belief. There's a lot of different information. I encourage you to go there. So
thank you for everything.
Anyone else? All right, why don't we give Susan one last round of applause?
Oh, I'm clapping. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.